If you've got a central heating system with radiators with water in, one thing you need to know is how to bleed them, how to let the gas out of them which collects at the top. You might find the top of the radiators are cold. You get a radiator key in the valve at the top, turn it, you'll hear a hiss, let the gas out. These are usually called air bleed keys when you buy them, but as I explained in my corrosion video, the gas that comes out is more likely to be hydrogen rather than air. And if you have to do this reasonably frequently, this is telling you that your radiators are corroding from the inside and you need to put some corrosion inhibitor in your system. For maintenance and replacement parts and so on, it's essential to have your manual and instructions for the boiler especially, electric shower, manual shower if it's thermostatic, and so on. Generally, you can Google for a free download of the manual if you know the make and model number, and often the manufacturer's website is the place to start with. Contact the customer care, tell them what you've got. Around the house you should have, beside taps especially, what's called isolation valves, which are to turn the water off if you want to change the taps or washers or something like that, so you don't have to turn off the water to the whole house. You may not have them in all the properties. They're sort of relatively recent, I suppose, and they're operated by a screwdriver in the slot. You'll see the slot in the middle. There's some older ones you turn the quarter turn clockwise for off and the quarter turn back for on, but the ones you buy these days you can turn round and round in any direction you like, and it doesn't matter. Inline, if the slot is in line with the pipe, it's on, and if it's across the way, it's off. I'm not sure why, but every winter when it's a cold spell, there are still pipes which get frozen and burst when they thaw out. I would have thought that you get a cold winter, all the vulnerable pipes in the country burst and they all get fixed and that's it. But no, there's still some every year. So you have to check the lagging of your pipe work. There are two thicknesses you can get. Use the thicker one if you possibly can. And this goes for pipes outside in the garage and so on, and also in your loft. The tradition has been not to put lagging underneath cold water tanks if you've got some in the loft, so that the warmth from the house below goes through the ceiling and keeps the water in the tanks from freezing. But of course lots of people go away on holiday when it's cold and there isn't going to be much heat in the house. This is when you should consider keeping the central heating on for a little bit each day, so that it keeps the pipe work in the loft from freezing, and also the pipes in the central heating system around the house. Something that combi owners need to consider is lagging the condensate pipe. It's the pipe which takes the acid liquid out away from the combi into a drain outside. If that pipe gets frozen and blocked, then the combi will stop working. This one's about insurance, and I've got 4 different areas to talk about. Insurance is a bit of a tricky thing. It may not do what you expect. For instance, if a blockage in the toilet, as I had once, sewage all over the floor, I got the floor replaced, but not with the cost of clearing the blockage. Luckily that blockage was out in the street, so it was the council responsibility, but it could have been very expensive. Secondly, water damage. What's your excess? This is the sort of thing which creeps up without you noticing, and you generally have to pay perhaps £250 or more if you get any water damage at all. I've met a plumber that came back from this holiday, water all over the place, something in the shower had burst. It wasn't his plumbing, but the insurance company refused to pay up because they said, as a plumber, he should have known to turn the water off before he went on holiday. So this might prompt you to think about making it easy for you to turn the water off when you go away on holiday for a break, perhaps, or just even for a couple of days. You'll see there's push button stop valve available now. You just push the valve and the water's off or on. This is a remote which can be 2 meters away, perhaps on the wall above the kitchen worktop, and when you go out the house just switch off and that's the water off. Thirdly, you should know a local plumber or know how to find one. If you are online, you can go to yale.com, which local, so on, and you'll find plumbers on a map to tell you where they are, and there are also ratings which are telling you about the jobs they did for the customer. Fourthly, if you get tradesmen, plumbers and so on to do work in your house, you really ought to check if they've got public liability insurance. If they do something and cause a lot of water damage, if they're not covered, your insurance company may not pay up and turn around to you and say, well, look, you should have taken people on who are insured. You can certainly ask your tradesmen if they're covered and they may say yes, but it's not very easy really. It's becoming easier online, but it's still not easy enough. And how's this for small print? My own insurer, who covers plumbers across the country, has some tradesmen in to do some plumbing work. One of them has public liability, but there's an exclusion on his policy excluding plumbing. So that was the end of him. He was shown the door. One of my customers came back from shopping, water coming through every ceiling in her flat. What had happened? The owner upstairs had a plumber in to fit a mains pressure under sink water heater like this. She was out while he was doing the job. So when he'd finished, he locked up and left. And then one of his joints burst. Well, that's like turning the tap on and letting it run for I don't know, an hour or something like that. Because it was a fairly modern flat with concrete floors, the water just didn't drop straight down through the cracks in the floorboards. It spread out through the whole flat. Now this plumber wasn't insured. What happened to resolve the situation was that the insurance companies of the two flat owners got together and agreed to split the costs. Well, quite some costs because of the huge amount of water damage. My customer was put out for over a month in a local hotel. The removal men came, emptied the flat and laid herself out in a warehouse to dry out. And when I came back, she was just surrounded by packing cases filled with all the stuff. My point here is that I wonder if plumbers are more careful if they're insured. I mean, but my excess is £250 and I've got better thing to do with 250 quid and hand it over to my insurance company if I make a cock up. So this is the sort of thing that should be made much more easy to find out about a plumber when you take him or her on. Are they insured? I think everyone should have a drain unblocker at home like this. You can get these suction plungers on sticks, but this one's much more powerful. And what I suggest you do is get the one with two end pieces like this. The small end pieces for sink blockages. You unscrew it, and while I'm here, remember I talked about using this as a siphon to take the water out of your stop valve chamber. I also use this if I'm taking out an old toilet to replace it. I can empty the cistern at the top and also the toilet trap at the bottom, just suck out the water, squirt into a bucket, and then with this second piece like this, I've got a siphon. I can unblock toilets. These cost about £6 or £7. They're not very expensive. I've got a professional unblocker, £400, but most of the blockages I encounter I clear with this. To clear a basin, for instance, put in some water in the basin, suck this up, put this over the drain, and if you've got water all the way from here right down to the blockage, with this action back and forwards, it's a very powerful motion which will clear blockages. You must remember to cover the overflow of the basin, perhaps get somebody else to do that for you. Otherwise you'll just be blowing water down through the waste outlet and up through the overflow. A lot of blockages aren't in the pipework in the house, but they're outside, maybe in the gully, that's the trap outside the kitchen sink, so the pipe coming out the wall empties into the gully, and that's something you can just put rubber gloves on, a leather glove, and take the stuff that's blocking out, and that'll clear it. But also you may have a blockage in the soil pipe. You clear that by looking into your manhole. You may have one or two manholes outside your house, especially if you've got a garden. Find out where they are, have a look inside, get a screwdriver, just leave the lid off, wear some gloves if you like, and lift the lid up and have a look inside. It should be nice and shiny at the bottom, and this goes also for plastic modern manholes. You have a big circular black plastic cover set in the ground. Just lever it off have a look. It may not be the sort of thing you'd normally like doing, but it's perhaps the ideal thing to get you out of the house at Christmas when everybody else is watching. Come down to the main Christmas special, but that's a repeat from last year. Out you go, get yourself a screwdriver and have a look, and if it's all nice and shiny inside, you're going to be very pleased with yourself. And of course, if you do see something, perhaps a blockage on the way, you'll know to go down to shops when they're open next, get some drainage rods, clear it, hose it down inside so it's all nice and shiny again, and then you can be really pleased with yourself.